First day of class. The crystalline halls of Nexus Prime University gleamed under artificial starlight as Professor Xelfar reviewed the roster for the upcoming semester. His 4 delicate tentacles trembled slightly as he noticed the new additions to his Advanced Physics of Dangerous Phenomena class. 5 human exchange students from Earth would be joining them. Earth, the Deathworld that had somehow produced a spacefaring civilization despite its countless hazards. The professor tapped his communication pad, sending an urgent message to the department head. The response came immediately. All necessary safety protocols have been implemented. The humans have signed our liability waivers. Xelthar's chromatophores flashed deep purple with concern. The very fact that humans needed to sign liability waivers spoke volumes about their species' disregard for proper safety measures. He had read their history files. Stories of humans jumping from functioning aircraft with nothing but fabric canopies, diving into ocean trenches with minimal protection, and climbing mountains in deadly atmospheric conditions. It made his secondary hearts palpitate with anxiety. The classroom door slid open, admitting his regular students first. They filed in wearing their standard protective gear, reinforced environmental suits with triple redundant life support systems, magnetic stabilization boots, and emergency teleportation beacons. The Vexian contingent had added extra radiation shielding, while the delicate Luminar students wore photosensitive dampeners to protect their crystalline bodies. Then the humans arrived. Xelthar's primary eyes widened in disbelief. They wore simple clothing, what they called jeans and t-shirts, with various incomprehensible symbols and images. No protective gear, no environmental suits, not even basic filtration masks. The tallest one, a female with dark hair tied back, actually carried a beverage container marked coffee, as if this were a casual social gathering rather than a potentially lethal physics laboratory. "Good morning, Professor," the lead human called out cheerfully. According to the roster, this was Marcus Chen, a graduate student specializing in extreme environment physics. "Sorry, we're a bit late. Had to stop by the cafeteria." Xelthar's tentacles curled in distress. "Students, where is your protective equipment?" Marcus looked down at himself, then at his fellow humans. "Oh, you mean the suits. We figured we wouldn't need them. The atmospheric conditions here are actually quite pleasant compared to some parts of Earth." A collective gasp echoed from the alien students. A Felvian student actually fainted, their emergency medical alert triggering automatically. But this is the Advanced Physics of Dangerous Phenomena." Xelfar sputtered. "We work with volatile chemicals, extreme radiation, and unstable gravitational fields." The dark-haired female, Sarah Martinez, according to the roster, shrugged. "Sounds like a typical Tuesday back home. I grew up in New Mexico. We used to play in the desert near old nuclear test sites." Another human, Dr. James Wong, a postdoctoral researcher, added helpfully, "Don't worry, Professor. We've read all the safety materials. We just prefer to maintain mobility and direct sensory input. The suits would actually make us less safe by restricting our natural responses." Xelthar decided to proceed with the lesson, though his hearts hadn't stopped their accelerated rhythm. "Very well. Today we'll be working with Trixian crystals. These compounds are highly reactive to electromagnetic fields and can cause severe molecular disruption if mishandled." He carefully demonstrated the proper handling technique using robotic manipulators. "Never touch these directly, even through protective gear, the resonance can." A sharp crack interrupted him. One of the Trixian crystals had slipped from a Luminar student's mechanical grip, plummeting toward the floor where it would surely shatter and release toxic vapor throughout the lab. What happened next occurred so quickly that Xelthar's visual processors could barely track it. Sarah Martinez dropped to one knee, extending her unprotected hand to catch the crystal inches from the ground. She cradled it gently, the dangerous compound resting peacefully in her palm, as if it were nothing more than a decorative bauble. "Got it," she announced cheerfully, standing up and carefully placing the crystal back in its containment field. These things are pretty similar to the piezoelectric crystals we use in our phone screens, aren't they? The lab fell silent. Every alien student stared at the human in shock. The crystal should have disrupted her cellular structure on contact. Instead, she was examining her hand with casual interest. Fascinating resonance pattern, she continued, oblivious to the stunned silence. I can feel it trying to sync with my bioelectric field. Kind of tickles. Professor Selthar's chromatophores had turned completely transparent, a sign of extreme shock in his species. You caught it? With your bare appendage. Marcus Chen stepped forward, sensing the professor's distress. Oh, right. I forgot to mention. Humans have an unusually high tolerance for electromagnetic fluctuations, something about our evolutionary history with electrical storms and solar radiation. We can usually sense dangerous frequencies before they become a problem. Usually. Selthar's voice rose several octaves. Well, sometimes we get it wrong, James Wong admitted. But that's how we learn. I've got some great scars from my undergraduate chemistry experiments. The other human students nodded in agreement, comparing various marks and burns on their arms with what appeared to be pride rather than shame. The alien students withdrew further, increasing the distance between themselves and their human classmates. A Vexian student's protective suit began emitting warning signals about proximity to uncontained hazardous entities. Zelthar attempted to regain control of the class. Perhaps we should move on to today's theoretical discussion before attempting any more practical experiments. But the hands-on stuff is the fun part, protested another human, Alexandra Novak, who was casually juggling 3 neutralized Trixian crystals she'd somehow acquired during the commotion. The professor's tentacles twisted into knots of anxiety. Those crystals are precisely calibrated for. Relax, Professor, Alexandra grinned, catching all 3 crystals and setting them down. I deactivated their resonance fields. Just needed to apply a counter-frequency. We do this kind of thing with unstable plasma cores back home. You work with unstable plasma cores. A Feldian student squeaked, their fur standing completely on end. Sure, Marcus replied. How else would we learn about fusion dynamics? Theoretical models only get you so far. The rest of the class period proceeded with the humans enthusiastically engaging in every dangerous demonstration, while the alien students huddled at the far end of the lab. They watched in horrified fascination as the humans handled toxic compounds, adjusted unstable field generators with their bare hands, and occasionally stuck their faces directly into scanning beams to get a better look. When the emergency containment alarm triggered after a minor gravitational fluctuation, the alien students immediately activated their emergency protocols. The humans, however, simply adjusted their stance and continued working, somehow intuitively compensating for the 0.3 G variance. Interesting, James Wong commented, making notes on his completely unprotected datapad. The gravitational pulse follows a semi-regular pattern. I bet we could predict the next fluctuation within a margin off. Another pulse hit, stronger this time. The alien students' magnetic boots locked them to the floor while their suits compensated. The humans simply swayed slightly, like trees in a gentle breeze. 3 seconds, James finished his sentence. See, the pattern's quite simple once you feel it. By the end of the class, Professor Xelfar had gone through all 7 color phases of stress his species was capable of displaying. The humans had successfully completed every dangerous experiment, handled every volatile substance, and survived every lethal environmental fluctuation without so much as a scratch. As the students filed out, Sarah Martins paused at the door. Thanks for the great class, Professor. I can't wait for next week. I heard we're doing something with antimatter. Zelthar's chromatophores flickered weakly. Yes. Antimatter containment protocols. Cool. I'll bring snacks. The other humans and I are thinking of starting a study group. Want to join us? After she left, Selthar slumped in his chair, all 4 tentacles hanging limply. He reached for his emergency medical kit and administered a dose of stress-reducing medication. How was he supposed to teach safety protocols to a species that treated lethal dangers like minor inconveniences? His communication pad chimed with a message from the department head. How did the first class go with the humans? Zelthar stared at the screen for a long moment before responding. I believe I understand now why they're called Deathworlders. They don't ignore safety protocols because they're reckless. They ignore them because they've evolved beyond our concept of danger. He added after a pause, I may need to redesign the entire curriculum. The department head's response was simply, Welcome to Teaching Humans. The counseling department offers support groups for faculty dealing with human students. Meetings are daily at 1500 hours. Zelthar made a note to attend. He had a feeling he would need it. The Gravity Well Challenge. 3 weeks into the semester, Professor Zelthar had almost grown accustomed to his human students' casual approach to mortal danger. Almost. The university's counseling sessions had helped somewhat, teaching him breathing exercises to perform whenever a human decided to taste test unknown chemical compounds or rewire live power conduits with their bare hands. Today's lesson would be different, he told himself. The gravitational variance chamber was one of the most sophisticated pieces of equipment on campus, designed to train students in handling extreme gravitational fluctuations. Surely this would be the day the humans finally showed proper respect for safety protocols. The alien students entered the chamber with their usual extensive preparations. Enhanced exoskeletal supports whirred to life, anti-gravity harnesses hummed with power, and emergency inertial dampeners glowed reassuringly. A group of Selkeni students had even brought personal medical drones programmed to watch for signs of gravitational stress. Then the humans arrived. Again. Marcus Chen led the group, wearing what appeared to be athletic shorts and a tank top. Sarah Martinez had actually brought a yoga mat. James Wong was stretching like he was preparing for a casual jog rather than potentially lethal gravitational extremes. Exciting day, Professor. Alexandra Novak called out, bouncing on her toes. I've been looking forward to this since I saw it on the syllabus. Zelthar's chromatophores flickered nervously. Today's exercise will expose you to gravitational fields ranging from 0.1 G to 5 G. These extremes can cause immediate organ failure, skeletal collapse, and cerebrovascular. Ooh, 5 G. The fifth human, David Kumar, interrupted. That's higher than the centrifuge training we did for the space program. This should be fun. The alien students collectively edged away from their human classmates. Evexian students' medical alert was already beeping in anticipation. Let us begin with a gradual increase to 2G, Zelthar announced, manipulating the chamber controls. Please activate all safety. The words died in his vocal chamber as the gravity increased. The alien students' mechanical supports whined with effort, automatically adjusting to the increased load. Several students activated their emergency hover fields to reduce strain. The humans, meanwhile, had dropped into what they called squats. Feel that burn. Marcus grunted happily, moving up and down with the doubled weight. This is better than my gym back on Earth. Sarah had unrolled her yoga mat and was performing something called a downward-facing dog, as if the doubled gravity was merely a mild inconvenience. The other humans were engaging in various calisthenic exercises, treating the potentially lethal environmental condition as a workout opportunity. Perhaps we should move to the scheduled exercise, Zelthar suggested weakly. The task was simple. Navigate through a series of obstacles while the gravity fluctuated randomly between 0.5 G and 3 G. The alien students would use their suits' predictive algorithms and stabilization systems to maintain balance and prevent injury. The first Luminar student stepped forward, their crystalline form encased in a heavy-duty support frame. As they moved through the course, their suits' systems constantly adjusted, compensating for each gravitational shift with mechanical precision. It was exactly as the safety protocols demanded. Then Marcus Chen approached the course. Your safety equipment, Zelthar reminded him. Oh, right. Marcus looked around, then shrugged. I think I'm good. These shoes have decent grip. Before Excelthar could protest, the human entered the course. The first gravitational shift hit, a sudden drop to 0.5 g, where the Luminar student had relied on mechanical compensation. Marcus simply adjusted his stride, moving with a peculiar bouncing gait that seemed to anticipate the change. A spike to 2.7 g followed. Marcus dropped his center of gravity, his muscles visibly tensing but showing no sign of the catastrophic failure Excelthar had been taught to expect. Humans, James Wong explained to a group of horrified alien students, evolved on a planet with significant gravitational variations. Tidal forces, centrifugal effects from our planet's rotation, altitude changes. Our bodies learn to adapt quickly. As if to demonstrate, the chamber suddenly shifted to 0.2 g, while several alien students frantically adjusted their hover fields to avoid floating away. Sarah Martinez had already pushed off into a graceful somersault, landing perfectly as the gravity normalized. We also, she added, sticking the landing, really enjoy activities that mess with our inner ear. Roller coasters, bungee jumping, skydiving. You voluntarily subject yourselves to gravitational extremes. A Feldian student asked, their voice synthesizer struggling with the concept. For fun, yeah, David Kumar confirmed. He was currently doing handstand push-ups in a 1.8 g field. The exercise continued with increasingly complex variations. The humans flowed through the course like water, their bodies somehow anticipating each shift. When a particularly violent fluctuation sent a Sulcani student stabilizer offline, it was Alexandra who caught them before they could be injured. Then came the emergency drill. Without warning, the chamber's gravity cut out completely. 0 g, most alien students immediately activated their emergency protocols, magnetic boots locking to the floor while their suits deployed stability thrusters. The humans, however, were already in motion. Sarah exclaimed, pushing off from a wall with practiced ease. She grabbed a floating equipment container that had come loose, securing it before it could become a hazard. Marcus and James had instinctively positioned themselves at key points in the chamber, ready to assist any students in distress. David and Alexandra were already checking on their alien classmates, making sure everyone was secure. Then Excelthar noticed the real problem. A Vexian student had been caught mid-step when the gravity cut out. Their magnetic boots had failed to engage, and they were now tumbling helplessly in the middle of the chamber, their suits' thrusters misfiring in panic. Before Excelthar could activate the emergency retrieval system, James Wong had launched himself from the wall. Using a series of precise movements that spoke of extensive 0 g experience, he intercepted the tumbling student, stabilized their rotation, and guided them safely to a wall handhold. You okay there? James asked the trembling Vexian. First time in 0 g can be disorienting. Just focus on a fixed point and breathe slowly. The gravity returned gradually, and the class assembled on the main floor. The alien students looked shell-shocked. Several were running emergency diagnostics on their safety equipment, unable to comprehend how the humans had functioned without it. How? Excelthar began, his tentacles weaving in confusion. How did you know what to do? Your species has only had spaceflight capability for a few decades. Marcus laughed. Professor, humans have been dealing with gravity our entire existence. We climb cliffs, jump from heights, swim in currents. Our bodies are constantly calculating forces and adjusting. It's just instinct. Besides, Sarah added, we grew up watching videos of astronauts on our space station. 0 g movement is cool. Cool, Excelthar repeated flatly. You consider the absence of a fundamental force of nature cool. Well, yeah, David shrugged. It's like flying. Who hasn't dreamed of flying? As the class ended, Excelthar overheard the humans making plans. Hey, I heard the physics department has a variable gravity recreation room, Alexandra was saying. Want to see if we can get permission to use it after hours? Absolutely. Marcus agreed. We could set up a 0G obstacle course, maybe some 3G strength training. I'll bring snacks, Sarah offered. Anti-nausea medication for the beginners. The alien students hurried away, their safety equipment beeping various warnings about prolonged exposure to humans. Selthar watched them go, then turned to his human students. I must ask, he said slowly, is there anything your species considers actually dangerous? The humans looked at each other thoughtfully. Black holes, James suggested. Nah, those are just interesting, Marcus countered. Now, bureaucracy. That's truly terrifying. The others nodded in solemn agreement. Zelthar made a mental note to attend extra counseling sessions, and perhaps to update his will. As the humans left, chattering excitedly about organizing weekend gravity sports, he received another message from the department head. The engineering department reports that 3 human students are proposing a project to surf solar flares. Please advise on safety protocols. Zelthar stared at the message for a long moment before responding. At this point, I suggest we simply observe and document. I'm beginning to believe human safety protocols consist primarily of try it and see what happens. The department head's reply was a single word. Agreed. Zelthar wondered if it was too late to request a transfer to teaching theoretical mathematics. At least equations couldn't actively try to endanger themselves for recreation. Then he remembered that humans had something called extreme mathematics and decided perhaps retirement was the better option. Survival 101 Final Exam. The final examination for advanced physics of dangerous phenomena traditionally took place in the university's most sophisticated simulation chamber. Professor Selfar had spent 2 sleep cycles preparing the test, designing challenges that would push even the most prepared students to their limits. After 13 weeks of teaching humans, he'd made special modifications, not to make it easier for them, but to ensure it was challenging enough to actually test their seemingly limitless adaptability. The alien students arrived at the examination center wearing the latest in protective technology. Environmental adaptation suits with quantum-level hazard prediction, portable force field generators, comprehensive medical support systems, and enough redundant safety features to survive a supernova. Several had brought personal AI assistants programmed with the entire university database of survival protocols. The humans arrived wearing hiking boots and carrying water bottles. Morning, Professor. Marcus Chen called out cheerfully. Beautiful day for a final exam, isn't it? Zelthar's chromatophores had long since developed a permanent twitch when dealing with his human students. The examination will simulate a Class 7 hostile environment. This includes toxic atmospheric conditions, extreme temperature variations, predatory threats, and periodic equipment failures. Sounds like Australia, Sarah Martinez commented, earning nods from her fellow humans. You will be required to navigate through various challenges, solve physics-based problems under duress, and ultimately reach the extraction point within 3 hours. Selthar continued, your performance will be evaluated on survival, problem-solving, and application of safety protocols. Alexandra Novak raised her hand. Question. When you say equipment failures, does that include our equipment, or just the simulated equipment in the scenario? Both, Zelthar replied, noting how the alien students clutched their safety gear more tightly while the humans merely looked intrigued. The examination began with all students materializing in a simulated volcanic landscape. The air shimmered with heat distortion, and the atmospheric readout showed dangerous levels of sulfur compounds and carbon dioxide. Pools of acid steamed ominously, and the ground trembled with simulated seismic activity. The alien students immediately activated their environmental shields and began consulting their equipment for optimal pathways. Their AI assistants calculated safe routes, accounting for wind patterns, geological stability, and atmospheric toxicity. The humans took a different approach. Volcanic terrain, James Wong observed, kneeling to touch the ground. Hot, but not immediately lethal. Maybe 60 degrees Celsius at the surface. Sarah was already tearing strips from her spare shirt. We can wrap these around our faces for basic filtration. The sulfur smell means we should stay low. Toxic gases rise. Marcus pointed to a distant ridge. See how the vegetation changes there. That's our best bet for reaching higher ground with better air quality. The first challenge appeared quickly, a river of acid blocking their path. The alien students deployed portable bridge generators, carefully calibrating them to withstand the corrosive environment. It took them 20 minutes to create a safe crossing. The humans were already on the other side. How did you cross? A bewildered Vexian student asked, watching David Kumar wringing acid from his socks. Rock hopping, David explained casually. The acid isn't uniform. See those darker rocks? They're more resistant. Plus, if you move fast enough, the exposure time isn't significant. Zelfar watched through the monitoring system, making notes. The humans had correctly identified that the acid simulation, while dangerous, wasn't instantly lethal, something their alien classmates hadn't even considered testing. The second challenge involved navigating through a maze of tunnels with failing life support systems. As programmed, the alien students' equipment began malfunctioning one by one. Oxygen regulators failed, temperature controls went haywire, and navigation systems glitched. Most alien students responded by attempting to repair their equipment or calling for emergency extraction. The humans adapted. When their temperature regulation failed in a superheated corridor, they created impromptu heat shields from reflective debris. When toxic gas leaked into their tunnel, they didn't panic about their lack of filtration systems. Instead, they located natural air currents and used them to create safe pockets for breathing. The human respiratory system is remarkably adaptive, Zelfar noted to his teaching assistant. They seem capable of functioning in conditions that would require full life support for other species. The most impressive moment came during the predator simulation. The system generated a pack of hostile creatures, amalgamations of various apex predators from known Deathworlds. The alien students responded with standard protocol. Defensive positions, weapon systems online, shield generators at maximum. The humans spread out, grabbed improvised weapons, and began coordinating like a professional hunting pack. Sarah, Alexandra, flanking positions. Marcus called out. James, David, you're with me on point. Remember, these things are based on real predators. They'll have blind spots. What followed was a lesson in applied physics and evolutionary biology that left Zelfar speechless. The humans used principles of leverage to create traps, exploited the simulated creature's momentum against them, and demonstrated an almost prescient understanding of predatory behavior. When one creature cornered a Luminar student whose shield had failed, it was Alexandra who intervened. She didn't use advanced technology or weapons. She used psychology, making herself appear larger and producing a sound that somehow triggered the simulated predator's retreat reflex. How did you know that would work? The saved student asked, their crystalline structure still vibrating with fear. Most predators avoid unnecessary risks, Alexandra explained. It's basic survival economics. Convince them you're more trouble than you're worth, and they'll usually back off. The final challenge was meant to be the most difficult. Complete equipment failure in an unstable environment. As programmed, all technology shut down simultaneously. The alien students, suddenly bereft of their protective systems, began to panic. Several activated their emergency beacons, choosing to fail rather than face the environment unprotected. The humans got to work. They fashioned shelters from available materials, created fire using friction methods, and even managed to purify water using improvised solar stills. When a simulated storm approached, they read the weather patterns and found natural shelter before it hit. But the most remarkable moment came when they refused to leave their alien classmates behind. Come on, Marcus urged a group of Felvian students who were huddled in their defunct suits. We'll get through this together. But we have no protection. One protested. Neither did our ancestors, Sarah replied gently. Trust us. We got you. What followed was a masterclass in primitive survival techniques. The humans taught their classmates how to regulate body temperature through behavior rather than technology, how to find safe paths through careful observation rather than sensors, and how to work as a group to overcome challenges no individual could face alone. They reached the extraction point not as separate species taking an exam, but as a unified team. The humans had not only survived the hostile environment, but had ensured that every single classmate made it through as well. As the simulation ended and they emerged into the real world, Seltzer stood waiting. His chromatophores displayed a color pattern none of the students had seen before, one of profound respect. "I have been teaching this course for 40 cycles," he announced. "Never before have I seen students not only survive the final examination, but completely redefine what survival means." He turned to the human students. "You've shown us that true safety isn't about equipment or protocols. It's about adaptability, cooperation, and the willingness to face challenges head-on." Marcus grinned. "Does this mean we passed?" "You've done more than pass," Seltzer replied. "You've taught us something vital. Your species doesn't ignore safety protocols because you're reckless. You transcend them because you understand something we forgot. That true safety comes from within, from the ability to adapt and overcome." The alien students, many still shaking from their ordeal, began to understand. They looked at their human classmates with new eyes, not as dangerous Deathworlders who ignored safety, but as evolved beings who had mastered it so completely that they no longer needed external protections. "Professor," James Wong asked thoughtfully, "would you be interested in a collaborative project? We'd like to develop a new course, one that teaches what we might call organic safety, the kind of survival skills that don't rely on technology." Zelthar's tentacles curled in what his students had learned to recognize as enthusiasm. "I would be honored, though I suspect I'll be learning as much as teaching." As the students filed out, discussing their experience with excitement rather than trauma, Seltzer received a message from the university administration. "The human students' performance has been noted. Several departments are requesting human teaching assistants for their safety courses. Please advise." He responded, "I recommend it highly, but perhaps we should rename them from safety courses to survival skills. The humans have shown us that true safety isn't about avoiding danger, it's about being prepared to face it." Later that evening, at the traditional end-of-semester celebration, Seltzer found himself sharing a table with his human students. They were entertaining a mixed group of species with stories of Earth's various hostile environments, from tornado-prone plains to shark-infested waters. "You know," Sarah said, raising her glass, "I think we've all learned something this semester. We learned that what divides us isn't our biology or our technology. It's our perspective on what's possible." "To new perspectives," Marcus added, and dozens of voices, in various languages and frequencies, joined the toast. Zeltzer sipped his nutrient solution, watching the unprecedented sight of multiple species laughing together about formerly terrifying topics. He realized that the humans hadn't just passed his course, they'd revolutionized it. The next semester's course catalog would list a new offering: Advanced Survival and Adaptation, co-taught by Professor Selfar and the Human Exchange students. The course description would read, "Learn to thrive in hostile environments using both traditional and human approaches to safety." Warning: this course will challenge everything you think you know about survival. It would become the most popular course in the university's history, and somewhere in the vast cosmos, word began to spread. If you want to learn how to survive anything, find a human to teach you. They're the ones who made a home on a Deathworld and decided it wasn't dangerous enough, so they went looking for more interesting challenges among the stars. The age of human-inspired survival education had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.